Well, I find this piece very whimsical, and these are the sorts of things I collect myself, particularly the bones and the skulls and the odds and ends, and I'm just delighted with what she's done with these pieces. Just her innovative use of the shapes and combining the pieces to create sort of anthropomorphic critters. And I think they're just delightful. Each one of them is very different. The bird looking into the nest, I think that's sort of a bird bug almost. It's got 4 legs instead of 6, but I think it's, you sort of wonder what it's saying as it looks down on the collection in that wire branch type nest, all the little beetles and egg bits and teeth bits. And then the other ones with bits of skull, and I particularly like that little angel with the vertebra. I have a bunch of vertebra at home and I've been wondering what to do with them. I think it's a wonderful idea. So it's caught my fancy every time I walk by.
I thought this was a really interesting piece because it's funny, but it's really well crafted. But I also like the idea of these guys not getting anywhere, looking at a map, and then this advertisement of this adventure behind them with the car, but the reality's in the front, where they're just sitting on the pavement, not moving. And that's why I like the piece. And it's really beautiful.
I like these pears because they look like they're really soft, even though they're really hard. And they kind of look like people's bums, maybe. And I'd like to take them home with me, but I don't think I have enough room. I would just take one, I suppose. They probably look like they took a long time to make. I don't really know how, but the stems are quite intriguing because they look like they might break off. But other than that, it looks pretty solid.
These are images that we have seen all our lives. They're images of Canada that only Canadians can truly understand, and yet here they are, John A. MacDonald and Louis Riel, but not in the way we've always seen them. They're done in fur, and by putting them into fur, we see other meanings into the whole pieces. All of a sudden, the conflict over the fur trade and the Métis and the Canadian government are brought to focus of the way they weren't when they were just done in their original colors.
Let's take a picture of the edges to show a couple of pictures.
I love this piece because I think it has both male and female elements in it. The cow placenta is, to me, the female nurturing element, and the male element is the very constrained, structured, metallic bits. So there's this push-pull of the female wanting to be organic and nurturing, and the male part of it, you could tell I'm a bit of a feminist, the male part of it is constraining it. And these, again, the growth and the nurturing, these forms here could be either vines growing upwards, or they could be veins and vines, a bit of a pun. I don't know whether this person meant to have a bit of a pun. And I love the juxtaposition of the really hard glass front, which has been put on, and the really organic, but dry and brittle at the same time, behind the glass.
And in this particular piece, David has been hand painting 35mm film strips and then transferring the resulting images to digital video. These are then put on a DVD format and presented as a triptych. David also has a musical soundtrack, which I suppose is a music of his choice, although I think there's a lot of different kinds of music that could go with the films, because when you're dealing with abstract imagery, I think the imagery can evoke many kinds of music.
I found it interesting this year that I saw several pieces that were commentary on the political situations, especially of the United States foreign policy, which this book of rules, is they call it, is commentary on. And there's another piece here on my left, which is a piece about the United States and their policies of war. And I found it encouraging, actually, to see that so many artists are grappling with these issues. I'm one of those people that think art is revolutionary, and that often artists lead the way in a new direction. So I'm encouraged and hopeful for what might be changing and shifting in our world as we critique what's happening. That's all I have to say.
Well, what I like about the piece is the reaction that it brings in you. You don't know what to do when you see something like this. It's you see details of a body, and you don't know whether you meant to see that part or not, or what part is the, you know, it's got that element of voyeurism in it. But then you see an eye looking at you from inside, so you wonder who is watching you as well. So what I like about it, it sort of blurs the boundaries between who is watching and who is being watched.
I saw this piece and I really liked it because it was very futuristic, and it looked like it was part of a sci-fi movie piece, and I really thought that it was one of the neatest things how this person had done exactly the same thing on either side, and he was able to do this so good. And I like how he did the brain and the top and everything. I thought that this is just so put together and made the best that it could be.
My immediate attraction to this piece is the little girl in the red. She's just real. Her face she looks so unhappy, but it really doesn't have anything to do with the meaning of the photograph. I like what he's saying, but yeah, it's the little girl.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, definitely first of all, I really like big photographs.
Yeah, it's a nice photograph.
This is a nice big photograph. And it's in a part of Vancouver that you wouldn't recognize right away. It's sort of behind Strathcona. And the box here has Chinese lettering, so I was like, is that Russia or that? I don't know, there's sort of the Asiatic influences of Russia. And I'm like, no, that's Vancouver. But the best thing about this photo is that little girl's face, because it's just, she's saying, yeah, just her body, her expression, she's just, that's her. She's just being so herself. So that's our favorite.
Well, I like this work because it kind of reminds me about the fragility of the body. A bed is kind of a private place, and it can be a place of comfort, but I guess as we get sick or get old, or fears of disease start to infiltrate our lives, it can kind of be a place of anxiety too, and that's what the test tubes inside the bed remind me of.
Sometimes I think that artists try really hard to get a lot of meaning and context in, but sometimes you can just be moved when the art itself is well done and it looks intriguing and interesting and grainy like this work does. Sometimes it's just about looking at the painting and not about if it's got a deep meaning, but just if it is interesting to you. So I like this one. I like the way it looks like the grainy film, that he's used the kind of surface here to make it look like a scratched film. It's wonderful, and the car itself is well done too. And then the interspersing with the red where it's crossed out. I like the piece a lot.
I like this piece, Interference, because it's a bunch of ceramic sort of robots, I guess, and the piece is, as far as the art is concerned, about sort of the background sounds that you always hear day to day. And what I sort of like about it is the fact that you always have your refrigerator, microwave, clocks ticking and all that going in the background. And this sort of just brings it out to the surface. It sort of explains sort of how you don't really notice it, but if you put it all together, it really gets on your nerves, I guess. And silence is a thing you don't usually hear anymore.
Today, right now, I'm just going to talk about this piece here. It's called Cervantes, and the title of this drawing is Lily. And I just thought it was intriguing because if you look at it closely, there's really no a beautiful lily in this picture. And you have to think what the artist was thinking when he was naming this or drawing the picture, because there's no actual live lilies. It seems to me a very, the lily could be dead, because the colors are expressing, you know, darkness and sadness and sorrow. And as you can see back here, a little light here that was kind of sad. And I think that it was a sad death for somebody, of a loved one or something, but found, you know, some light and is able to overcome it, but still has some sorrow in his or her heart.
I like this piece because I myself sew clothes, have all my life, and when I saw this I thought, wow, look at the art that she's done with the ordinary things out of my sewing box. And I love the way that just little distances of the domes out and in give it a dimension. Some are close to the wall and some are further out. And the needle box, starting it all out, is really neat. It's very creative. And I think that she stayed with black against the white wall is very good. It's a great contrast. Makes me think a bit of those spirograph that we had as kids.
I really like this piece of art because it's really, I like this color, it's really cool, and I like this shape because it's like wave. It reminds me the sea and river, so I like this art.
Cool. I like it because it's kind of shows different phases of the world, and it's kind of a unity with different diversity. So, and as you were saying, the waves, it's kind of a common waves throughout the people of the world. So it kind of brings together diversity into a unity, to a common art piece.
I like this piece because it's like kind of weird in a cool way, and it's like doesn't look normal, and that's what art's all about. Kind of says things aren't normal, you know, in the world. So that's why I like it. It's cool.
As soon as I saw it, I had the impression that I saw like a perfect piece of art, and I don't know how you can determine that, but to me, as soon as I saw it, it seemed absolutely technically breathtaking. It's completely smooth. There's kind of a blending from every single perspective. All the colors seem to mesh together, and what I like about that is it's so difficult to capture that on paper, but you see it everywhere in nature. And I thought she did a great job of doing what she wanted to do, which was show kind of moments where we shift our perspective and shift our attention to something else, and there's a blur in the middle. And sometimes I don't think that gets enough attention because it kind of can impact your psyche just as much as something that you stare at and not look at, or again, for a long time.
I guess the reason I like this piece is because it gives you a sense of personality with past possessions of people who once owned these things. Because basically what it is, it's all items from people's past and like people's belongings that the artist has taken and put together. And it makes you feel as if there's a lot of history involved with all the artwork. So it's not just like a piece of just, you know, a bunch of junk that somebody collected. There's actually a lot of history and spirit behind it, I'd say, which I find really interesting. It really draws you into it.
This piece by Jennifer Fisher called White Palace is my favorite piece in the entire show because it talks about how being a film student as a young woman and how she was used to portray women who were used as violent objects in the film because it was the only way that other boys could think of to move the plot line along in their films. I think it's great because it talks about a lot about how women in society feel, because we are constantly being objectified and sexualized because of our sex and because of the North American culture around women's bodies. Yeah.
I like this one because to me it looks like what I saw when I helped my sister give birth to her first baby. So it looks like something that no one else has seen but a very select group of people, and that doesn't ever get talked about. So it's really pleasing for me to see it. And this is just totally like the stages of when my sister's baby was coming out. And I like how the flesh looks sort of rippled and like it's doing lots of work. It looks very energetic. And I like how the red balls are red and they look very different from the flesh, like it's something very new coming out. And something like the red is sort of, it looks sort of painful and like it's got life in it, like it's got sort of, yeah, like it's made of flesh and blood, and it's a bit scary, and it's even a bit sort of gross or shocking. Yeah, so that's why I really like it, and I think it's great.
I think this is a pretty good piece here, showing the Canadian and American flags there, and it basically is telling us that there's the native heritage and the corporate symbolism that is used in native designs, like the chief and the Cleveland Indians over here, and have taken away from what the native heritage is really all about. So this piece kind of molds both corporate symbolism and native in the same piece. I think it's a great piece. Very good. Very well done.